I just finished reading Apeirogon, a novel. First published in 2020, Apeirogon tells the true and unlikely story of two fathers, Bassam Aramin, a Palestinian, and Rami Elanan, an Israeli, who bond over the deaths of their daughters. Bassam's 9-year-old daughter, Abir, was killed by an IDF rubber bullet on her way to school, and Rami's daughter, Smedar, was 14 when she was killed by a suicide bomber while shopping for school supplies. This novel is meant to highlight the men's loss in friendship as they now speak together, urging empathy for one's enemy instead of vengeance, and working toward peace. The author shared drafts of the novel with both men and received their blessings in publishing. I found it a very difficult book to read, not because of the sadness of losing a child, but rather due to what I read as an anti-Israel bias. So frustrated I was that at the third way mark, I went to the internet to read reviews. The first review I read by Peter Eisenstadt hinted at what I was feeling. After telling the reader he gets nervous whenever he reads a book without footnotes, Eisenstadt wrote, "The strengths of the impressionistic narrative are also a weakness. This is a story of recent events, not a history. Those without a background in the politics of 21st century Israel and Palestine will not find it here." Certainly that was part of what I was feeling. For example, McCann tells the reader of the massacre at the Arab village of Deir Yassin in 1948 by rogue elements of the Jewish militia, which broke the peace, and over 100 Palestinian men, women, and children were killed. He does this without mentioning that this didn't happen in a vacuum, but rather during the 1947-48 civil war in Mandatory Palestine. Arabs had already been given 78% of the partition land to create Jordan. Jews had already agreed to the partition plan, and the Arabs had refused to agree on saying they wanted no Jews on the land. Nor did the author mention that Jerusalem was under siege at this time. Nor does the author mention that 2 days later, 78 Jewish doctors and nurses on their way to Mount Scopus in a bus were attacked and their bodies charred beyond recognition. Anyone reading this book without a solid understanding of history might be convinced of Israel's one-sided cruelty and perhaps left with the understanding that Palestine is occupied for no reason but Israel's aggression. My unease with this novel came from something stronger than all that was left out. I kept thinking of an article I had read 2 years ago where I learned of Tocqueville's paradox. As societies become more democratic and just, people become more critical of them. This novel details the trial of the IDF soldier who shot Abir and the judge that held Israel responsible, without questioning the fact that a trial of the suicide bomber that killed Rami would never happen in a Palestinian society that created, lauded, and rewarded the family of the suicide bomber. Israel as a democracy critiques itself, yet the Palestinian Authority or Hamas would never. This leads to authoritarian romanticism. The reader may be left criticizing Israel's actions without realizing that Palestinians were protected by a regime that would never allow internal critique, confusing repression with virtue. I am not sure how many people will listen to the end of this review. I have a small audience, but if you do listen, please comment and let me know your thoughts.